Hey folks, Carrie and I were in a hurry to record this and we didn't do a proper introduction. So I just wanted to mention to anyone who kind of stumbled across this randomly. In this one we review There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. And we do spoil a lot of stuff and we also swear a lot. So now you know. All right. It's recording.
So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. So we just read There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins.
Released on September 26, 2017.
Yeah. Yesterday.
So this is another hot take special, y'all.
It is. And oh my God, I'm so excited that I got to read this book. I have things to say.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
At the beginning, did you think it might be a supernatural thing?
I never thought that, no.
Okay.
Maybe because I know that Stephanie Perkins herself is a really big horror movie fan.
Oh, okay.
So I was sort of, expecting the sort of teen slasher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we got.
Sure is.
So I was not expecting or thinking about the supernatural, maybe because I was expecting more Friday the 13th. I wasn't even going to, Anna Dressed in Blood.
Gotcha.
But I'm guessing that's where you went. And why did you go that way?
Well, I don't know. I guess when I think of horror, I think of more like kind of ghost or zombie or, I think of like The Shining or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the beginning, like there's all this creepy stuff of like things aren't where you leave them. And that's sort of poltergeisty.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I was going there. And also like, it just didn't seem possible that an actual person would be able to move things around like that without getting caught or even making a sound. Completely
impossible. But I mean, you think about, I don't know, regular horror movies. I'm assuming impossible things happen there too. I don't watch them. I don't know. But I mean,
no, I think that's true. I think that's like a kind of a trope of it. And it didn't bother me. Like, I mean, that was just I felt like that was just kind of a fake out on Stephanie Perkins's part. And I was fine with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the book opens with this girl, Haley, talking to her friend on the phone, and nobody's home. And she's really tired after a day of rehearsal, and her high school is doing Sweeney Todd because, of course, they are.
Yeah, why not?
That's normal. But she gets home and there's an egg timer on the front porch. And she's like, oh, that's fucking weird. Okay. And then she brings it inside, and then it turns up a few places before she gets brutally slaughtered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the butter, like there's a butter knife that goes between the sink and right.
Which you're right, are absolutely impossible, because if she's in the kitchen or, moving between the kitchen and the living room, it's pretty impossible for this stuff to happen. But there's a lot of this going on in the book that's really impossible to happen.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about? So the main character is Makani Young. She moved to the middle of, what was it? Is it Nebraska?
Yeah, Osborne, Nebraska. Yep.
Yeah, so she moved to Osborne, Nebraska from Hawaii after an incident, which she is completely, pretending, I don't know, not necessarily to be a different person, but to hide her past.
Yeah, she's sort of pretending it never happened. She doesn't want anyone to know about it. She doesn't want to say anything. She's worried that people will figure out that it was her. So one of the things that when I was reading this book, I found a little annoying was like, there's a long period of this book where that this thing happened to her, but the book doesn't tell you what it is. And I was just like, I mean,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then like 2/3 of the way through the book, you do learn. And I mean, I would say it's creepier than half of the murders.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
It was awful. So all these girls got hazed. They had to write, things on their forehead, slut, bitch, etc. They had to do shots if they answered to any name other than the slur that was written on their forehead. So everyone was trash. They were sick. They were, dog food was poured on them. Honey was poured in their hair. I mean, it was awful. And these girls were fucking wasted. And when you're wasted, your brain's not anywhere near normal. And when you're being hazed, so she lobbed off somebody's hair.
Yeah, her best friends.
Big fucking deal.
Then saw her like go into the ocean and didn't rescue her when she was drowning.
Well, that part I'm just like, I don't know. You're drunk. You're not thinking.
Yeah.
So I was like, wait, she had to move from Hawaii for that? For that? She could have changed schools. But no, she had to move to Hawaii. Move from Hawaii, rather.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess what they say is first that internet people heard about this story, and the kind of men's right activist crowd started making her life hell. And plus also her parents were splitting up, and they are, I would say that they're maybe not in the top 5 worst parents of books that we've read, but that's just because that bar is so very, very high. They're like terrible.
Yeah, they're really bad. I mean, she almost gets murdered.
Yeah.
And her mom's just like, you make everything about you.
Yeah.
I was like, she almost got literally slaughtered by a serial killer. And you're saying that she did that on purpose?
Yeah. This is just such like you. So like you. Yeah. So it seems like her parents kind of would just as soon not have her around. So
I'm glad we never met them in person.
Yeah, over the phone was plenty.
Yeah, I was like, oh God, I don't want to meet her. I don't want the climax of the story to happen and her mom shows up and her mom makes everything worse. But thankfully that did not happen. So I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I think my question would be, Grandma Young?
Yes.
Greatest grandma or greatest grandma?
Yeah, I texted you saying that I was in love with her. Yeah, she's great. The like the way that she deals with when Ollie comes over for the first time and pulls up in his retired police vehicle. And then they get out and he's got pink hair and he's got a lip ring, I think. Mm-hmm. And is this kind of this skeletal figure. And she's like, yeah, well, what are you waiting for? Come on in. And then for some reason, just the whole thing about like, do you want something to drink? And he says no. And then she offers him 5 different things. And then he's like, okay, well, I'll have some water. And then he offers him like 3 different kinds of ice cubes. It's just like, this woman is the best. So, I mean, ultimately, the killer comes for Makani. Is that?
I don't know if it's Makani or Makani, but my brain went to Makani. So.
Oh, Makani. Yeah, I buy that. So when the killer comes for Makani, he's upstairs and like he comes down the stairs naked and intervenes.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. And then Grandma Young shows up and like attacks the killer also. And then later on they're talking about it and Grandma's like, she is a little bit annoyed that our protagonist lied. And she's like, we need to talk about birth control. And that's about it. Like she's not concerned that this naked man is.
Well, I think in that, it's not very common that a naked man like chases out a serial killer. But when that does happen, I think that sort of beats out a lot of other, conversations you might be having.
Yeah.
Normally it would be, can't believe you had a boy over. I can't believe you're doinking the boy, et cetera, et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. Boys aren't allowed in the house. You're not, you need to be where you say you are, et cetera, et cetera. But the serial killer, that fucks everything up.
Yeah. Although McConaughey's mother wouldn't necessarily agree, it seems.
Yeah, McConaughey's mother just wouldn't care.
No.
So let's talk a little bit about the story as a whole. So we've got the protagonist, McConaughey, again, moved from Hawaii to East Jesus Nowhere, Nebraska.
Yeah.
She's living with her grandmother, which is her mom's mom. And she is super into a skeletal pink-haired boy named Ollie who works at the grocery store. She had a thing for him over the summer. And then the summer ended, and then she pines for him. She's got two friends, Darby, who's trans, and Alexandra. And they have been best friends forever, and sort of McConaughey's the third wheel. And then murder happens. So that's pretty much the basic outline of the story. McConaughey finds herself sort of in the middle of a lot of goings on. Eventually talks to Ollie, and they figure their shit out, and then they start banging again. Yeehaw.
Yeah. And I think, the total lack of communication that characterizes the first part of their relationship seems real true to life to me.
It really does. I'm like, that is so not even just high school. That's just so human.
Yes. So let's see. So there end up being, well, it gets a little bit confusing, but there are.
I wrote it all down.
Okay.
I got every dead kid written down. By the way, a lot of dead kids happen. A lot of them. Everyone is everyone who dies is a teenager because this is a slasher flick.
Yeah.
And there's some problems that I had with this, but I think, as a story it worked really well. But as like, if this were real, if this really happened, there were some major problems. So as we've said, the killer, I'm just going to keep talking. I'm sorry. Just edit me down if you need to. The killer has been sneaking into people's houses, like we said with Haley, who was the first death. Things weren't where they were supposed to be. So this is a recurring thing that seems to keep happening, is that things aren't where they're supposed to be. And later on in the story, like no one puts two and two together. So the last dead girl is at home alone with her siblings. And she's like, this window opens just enough for a skinny person to come in. And here's some empty tuna cans. I was like, in what universe are you not calling someone to fucking fix that window?
Right. I mean, partly I think that because these are teens, it would be up to the parents to deal with that stuff. And I'm not sure like how quickly all this stuff is happening. Towards the end, it's very quick.
I mean, it seems that it's very quick because it happens from the start of the semester to Halloween. So really just 2 months for all this to happen. It's not like it's going on over the course of a couple of years. And I mean, it's all very quick,
Mm-hmm.
Ends up being, a slash a week.
Yeah.
And so the fact that parents are even leaving their kids home alone fucking astounded me. Like, you have got to be kidding me.
No, I agree with that. I think it's not made public that this killer is like the kids, our team of misfits, I think, is the one who figures out that the killer is rearranging things while the victims are still alive.
Yeah.
So that might not be public knowledge. So the tuna can might not necessarily.
Well, I think it was public knowledge because people in school seem to know about Rodrigo's house.
Right. But they thought that that was done by the killer after.
Oh, yeah. Because, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, once Makani is attacked, like, then she knows. And presumably people, you know, that the police at least know after that. But
yeah.
But things really start to take off then, which I think is like, once we know who the killer is, which is halfway through the book, like this was kind of a reverse of what happened to me with the selection, where I'm like, it's like, oh, and here's who the killer is. And I'm like, oh, wow, this book must be almost over. And I looked down, I was like 58%. I was like, oh no, there's quite a bit of book left. Then things really start speeding up. People get killed a lot more quickly.
Which also astounds me because, they now know who he is and he's moving so much more quickly. I was like, damn, this guy's good.
Yeah, but that's also when he starts making mistakes, when people start actually getting back at him. Like, Katie Kurtzman, who's the one who we were just talking about. Even though she doesn't prevent him from getting in or doing anything like that, she does think to put a bucket of paint in front of the window so that when he does come in, it makes a noise and he's also covered in paint.
But she heard the noise and she didn't know what it was.
Right. But it seems like it's all kind of like she eventually tries to keep the basement door shut. And she doesn't quite manage to do it. But by the way, like a little telling detail that kind of broke my heart a little bit is when the killer is asked her, like, why aren't you screaming? And she thinks, because I don't want to wake up my, the twins, her siblings.
I know. That was the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of this that was the worst, but that was the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I could think is, oh my God, those kids are going to grow up knowing they were sleeping while their older sister was murdered.
Yeah.
Great.
Hmm.
So, a lot of death.
Yeah.
So we see, the first dead girl, Haley, and then the second one is Matt, who's a football player. He gets murdered, in the locker rooms. And again, he takes a shower, he's wearing a towel, and he goes to the locker to get his stuff, and his stuff is missing, and thinks all of his bros are, joking with him, and nobody's there.
And so the killer is like, I don't understand why people don't realize that this is funny. Because he's the way he mutilates the bodies afterwards has some kind of, jokey quality to it. But a lot of it you wouldn't necessarily know. So Matt is obsessed in a way that he doesn't tell anyone about by CTE, which is, football players in particular, if they get hits to the head a lot, if they get concussions, it's a brain disease that can affect them. Mm-hmm. And so then after he dies, the killer cuts off the top of his head, mixes up his brain, and then puts the top back on again. So that's what that's about. Yeah, and then next is Rodrigo Morales,
who Alex had a huge crush on. So Alex, who is Makani's friend, had a super big crush on this guy, and down he goes. And
he also had a crush on her.
Yeah, and I was like, damn it. That made me so mad. That the fact that they both liked each other and they never got to act on it. Oh man, Stephanie Perkins, you're fucking with my heart.
Yeah. Although he's also kind of an ex-Gamergator type.
Oh, he's such a douchebag. But yet, I don't know, there's something, I still want the douchebag to get a little something, but instead he dies.
Yeah, he does.
And tell me what happens to him.
Well, his ears are cut off and put in headphones for his game set. Game set? That's not a word. I'm a million years old, everyone.
His console?
Yeah, that's the one. His Atari 2600. And then the killer like sits down and plays games for another 5 hours.
Which is bonkers.
Yeah.
Oh, killer's a douchebag.
So I didn't realize this at the time, but there's a pretty big clue in here. In that part.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just say the killer is Rodrigo's best friend, David.
Yes.
So the chapter where Rodrigo is killed, first it starts out with what I thought was a pretty good fake out. It says, there was a machete wedged behind the empty water cooler. He couldn't believe that someone had hidden it here of all places. He yanked out the large plastic bottle and threw it at the woman, gaining the precious seconds necessary to reach back and fumble for the weapon. And so this is actually taking place in a video game, but it's, as I say, it's a little fake out.
No, I fell for it.
Yeah. And then, so then later on it says, so he like sees, stuff is getting, he falls asleep, he wakes up, all the furniture in the room has been rearranged. It kind of seems like maybe his energy drink was drugged or something, although it's not.
I think so, because he said he didn't remember having a second one, and he kind of went down pretty fast. I mean, for having an energy drink.
Yeah. So it says instinct told him to call the police, but that was dumb, wasn't it? He checked his phone for the 100th time, and when there weren't any message, he sent a text to the whole group. LOL, you got me. Who did it? There was an electronic ding, and Rodrigo spun around. So the killer is one of the people he texted. That's what that says.
Duh! Oh my God, duh! I'm such an idiot. I completely missed that.
I missed it too. I only saw it. I was like kind of skimming through it quickly before we called.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I need to reread it. There are probably other clues.
Well, there's definitely, this is a book, because there's stuff that, you don't know who the killer is until halfway through. And so when you read back, you can kind of look for stuff about David.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I know David like asked her, who do you think the killer is?
Right. Yeah. But,
oh, you fucking douche.
But Rodrigo also texts back and forth with David a lot, but right before in the evening before he gets killed. And then once we know Makani's story with the hazing and whatnot, then that also makes it like, the police ask her, like, do you have any particular expertise with knives or anything? And she freaks the fuck out because of the whole thing with her cutting off her friend's hair.
But geez, that is not like when you think about like what she and everyone on the team went through. It's like, no fucking shit, somebody snapped.
Yeah, no, I agree. But that contextualizes, that kind of thing a little more.
Yeah, I kept waiting to find out, like, she, like, I don't know, accidentally killed somebody or something. But I'm like, oh, you cut off somebody's hair?
I guess that's like something Stephanie Perkins is trying to do, where, like, that whole scenario is so nightmarish. And then what she actually did doesn't seem like it's that bad.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was so traumatic for her that you can just imagine that anything that brings it back at all would just, yeah. Yeah,
so she changed her name and she moved to Nebraska and never feels, part of it is, she's one of the only Black girls or Black, her grandmother and her are like the only Black people in town, and she's also half Hawaiian. So she stands out a lot, and so I think she feels removed from this community where everyone grew up together and everybody knew each other, and she feels like an outsider. So not only did she change her name and she's hiding stuff, but she also, it's got to be really lonely.
Yeah.
But we've got more dead kids.
Oh, yeah. So then there's Caleb Greeley, the religious douchebag.
Such a douchebag. But I like what happened to him.
Tell me.
So his hands got sewn together in and as they were praying.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fucking Caleb, I'm sorry. Like, he was a total douchebag, but I mean, nobody deserves to get murdered, but man, he was a douchebag.
Yeah. The other thing you can look for when you're reading, because it's revealed at the, well, you already said this, but that people are getting killed because they're going to leave the area.
Yeah.
And so they, in the book, it kind of, for most or all of them, it says where they're, why they're leaving and where they're going. So he's planning to be a missionary in Papua New Guinea. Mm-hmm. It even says he'll be the first Greeley to leave Nebraska in generations.
Yeah, Haley was going to go to Broadway. Matt, I mean, he wasn't going to leave the area, but the state, but he was going to leave the area to go play football for the college.
Yeah. I don't think Rodrigo specifically says what he's going to do, but he's apparently super smart and is probably going to go to Silicon Valley or something.
Yeah. And Caleb was going to, like you said, go to Papua New Guinea. And Katie, who's the fifth, I just have a list that just says dead kid. So she's the fifth dead kid.
Yeah.
And she was, she had her heart set on college.
Right. And specifically getting away from her family.
Yeah.
So it says that she applied to USC and a bunch of other colleges that are far away. And then there's a horse racer.
Yeah, that's Rosemarie. She's a rodeo chick, and I don't know, she's just really good at what she does, and it will probably,
it says she's ready to go national.
Yeah. So wherever national is not in East Jesus, nowhere, Nebraska.
Yeah.
So everyone is expected to leave. And David ain't having that shit.
No.
David's whole plan is to make everyone who was going to leave literally stay in town by murdering them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would turn himself in and leave town by way of prison.
Right. And ultimately, in fact, by dying himself.
Yeah. I was like, oh, so you don't leave town, motherfucker.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason why people are a little bit no longer on guard once McConney identifies him is that they think that he's leaving town and running away.
Yeah.
But he keeps coming back. And it says that. And it's because he can't leave.
Yeah.
Due to psychological problems.
And we don't really know much about said psychological problems other than, Zachary, who was a complete asshole, who was his friend when they were kids, said, yeah, he's kind of always been this way.
Right. That he was quiet until he wasn't. And then he would, completely.
He would ambush you from the bushes and make you wish you had never borrowed his bicycle.
Yes. As you do.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to pay attention to this on my re-skim. I don't think we ever really get a physical description of David.
We don't. I think we hear a lot of kind of just quiet and unassuming, but not a lot of physical description.
Yeah. He's just kind of a cipher.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's often, well, in real life. Actually, I don't know how true this is, but it's certainly at least the stereotype is that when a serial killer is arrested, all the neighbors are like, he was so quiet and he kept to himself.
Yeah. He seemed like such a nice guy.
Yeah. So, it's mentioned, let's see. So Zachary says, in the movies, if you have sex or if you use drugs, then you get killed. So obviously we're going to die. And they're often, I feel like often in the sort of slasher movies, there is kind of this moral aspect to it where the people who die kind of have it coming to them.
Yeah. And there's always one girl who escapes to tell the tale.
Right. And yeah. And that's not like some of the people who get killed kind of, are bad people. Well, actually, let me back up. Most of the people in the book are not, I'm not going to say they're bad people necessarily, but they're pretty flawed, right?
Well, I mean, they're teenagers, but I think, like, when I look at them, okay, so there's Haley.
Yeah.
There's nothing really wrong with her.
No.
Matt, he's a douchebag football player, but he loves his mom, and
yeah, he's not the worst.
He's worried about his poor brain. Rodrigo realizes he was a complete asshole online and is sort of trying to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb's a douchebag, but he's not skinning puppies or anything.
True. And then
Katie's really nice. Alexandra, she's not terrible. She's loud.
Yeah.
That's not, none of them are bad people. None of them had it coming in a way that you would sort of expect in a slasher movie. Like none of them were so awful where they were like taunting David and, sort of making him snap.
Yeah. So
none of them really knew him well. Most of them didn't. They were just like, I don't know, he was a kid who was in my class.
Yeah. So I kind of like that in the sense that it made it less predictable about who was, who David might go after and who was actually going to live and who's going to die.
Well, if you go for it that way, the people who have sex and do drugs, those are the people who live.
Yeah, no, exactly. Totally. Just like real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. And then
it's usually the black character gets killed first.
Yeah, that's true as well.
She lives.
Both of them live.
Yes.
Good. Because Grandma Young, I wouldn't be having with that. I would be like, fuck this book if Grandma Young got killed.
Yeah, I was nervous. I was really nervous, especially towards the end as there was just a lot of stabbing going on.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was getting scared.
I wasn't particularly crazy about Alex getting killed, but it happened like so quickly, and even though it's right there, there's no real description of it.
No, I literally had to go back a couple of pages and be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Because it was so fast. I was like, wait, Alex died? And then I go back and I'm like, oh wait, shit, she was almost decapitated. Yeah, she died. Yeah. Fuck. And how sharp are your knives where just like a quick slice almost decapitates somebody? Jesus cat Christ.
Well, you have to keep your knives sharp. A dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp knife. That's what they say.
That's what they say. Yeah. So Rosemary, who's the rodeo girl, she gets a fucking pitchfork and she goes to town.
Yeah.
But homeboy does not die.
He does not.
He does not die. So instead he starts going stabby. Alex gets killed.
Darby and Ollie get stabbed. And it seems like they're dead, but they aren't.
They're not, which is the best, because I had to write on because as I'm taking notes, I wrote next to Darby 7th, and then to Ollie 8th, and then I got to cross them off because they did not die.
Yeah, good.
Because I would have been really pissed if Ollie died, because as in all Stephanie Perkins books, I get a crush on the boy.
Okay.
And if anybody had fucked with Ollie, they'd have to answer to me.
Yeah. So I kind of liked on the one hand that it was, kind of more random and there wasn't that kind of moral dimension. But then I also wasn't sure what it all boiled down to. Like, what are you supposed to take away?
Yeah, I kept trying to figure out exactly. I kept trying to figure out like where is the killer going with this? Like, if it's random, why is it random? If there's a pattern, I can't see it. What the fuck? It made me frustrated. And then when I finally, when we finally got the whole story, you guys have to stay here so I can leave. It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, like, is Stephanie Perkins just trying, like, this is just a kind of a thriller that doesn't really have a moral dimension per se? Or is the moral, like, I don't know. I guess this is what happens when I read a book once and then immediately record a thing about it. It's like, I'm not actually sure what this means. But
it's YA horror, so maybe it's not supposed to mean anything. But I don't know. I think it means don't move to Nebraska.
Yeah.
They got a shit ton of corn and murderers, and that's all they got.
Well, no, they have corn pits also.
Yeah. And I was 100% expecting the second I found out about that corn maze for the showdown to happen in the corn maze. And did that happen?
It did.
It sure did. And I was really excited to see that corn pit come into play.
And that's, the corn pit. As soon as it was mentioned, I was like, all right, this is going to come back.
Well, I mean, it's such an odd detail that it would have to.
Yeah, it was an odd detail, which was also emphasized.
Otherwise, why would you mention?
Yeah.
And plus, corn pits are cool.
Yeah, I assume. I've never been in one.
You get like corn kernels all up in your whatnot.
I bet. Maybe we should explain what a corn pit is for those who have not read the book and also don't live in Nebraska.
I don't live in Nebraska, and I've been in a corn pit, my dear.
All right. It's a pit filled with corn.
It's a pit filled with like dried corn kernels, and so it's it's sort of like a ball pit for kids where you can like, oh, look at me, I'm in a pit of stuff, except it's dried corn. Sort of looks like, I don't know, 100,000 bags of unpopped popcorn.
Yeah.
And so it's cool, you get to stick your feet in and kick around and sit there and be like, oh, look at me, I'm in corn, and you take some pictures for Instagram, and that's about all it is. But yeah, when you sit in there, the corn kernels just like find their way into places.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, makes sense.
Bruce went into a corn pit last year around Halloween. We went to the Museum of Life and Science here in Durham, and I found corn in his butt.
Okay. I have another question.
Yeah.
Did you suspect anyone in particular before it was revealed to be David?
Well, I did.
So did I.
I suspected Chris.
So did I.
Because it would have been very obvious. So Chris is Ollie's older brother, who's a cop. So I'm just like, okay, this guy has access to a lot of information. He's had some trauma in his life. Both the parents died, and now he's taking care of his younger brother. I mean, how could it not be? But it wasn't. He was just a good guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because like people kept, McConaughey's friends keep thinking that Ollie is the murderer or might be the murderer. And so they give all these reasons, but most of those reasons would also apply to Chris.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, he's a loner, and oh, his parents died, and oh, he must kill because of that.
Yeah.
But I guess I thought like, well, Chris has training and access, and I don't know. I guess I just thought it was him, but it was not. And I'm glad it wasn't. Maybe that would have been too easy, but also David sort of felt like he came out of left field.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I felt the same way. Looking back on it, there were like a few signs, but nothing that you would actually.
And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that makes it, more fun. I did have a lot of fun reading this book. I did not stay up until 2 a.m. like some people.
Well, yes, that's true. So, my situation was basically I got a podcast editing job. I edit podcasts for money. If anyone ever wants to hire me to do that, feel free to get in touch. And so I did that, and then I read the book, and then it was 2 a.m. And then I was like, I just read a horror novel. And now it's 2 a.m. and theoretically I'm going to sleep now.
I slept fine.
That was good planning.
The only time I think I got a little nervous at bedtime after reading a book was Fifth Wave. Fifth Wave really freaked me out because it has aliens, and I don't do well with aliens. As an aside, turns out murderers, serial killers, I'm fine with. I slept like a baby.
All right, so when we did our previous hot take special on the Harry Potter book, we gave it a grade at the end.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about giving it a grade?
You mean, can I give it a grade, or what grade do I want to give it?
Both.
Yes, I can absolutely grade it and I'm ready. What's the scale?
Just your straight letter grade, I would say.
I would say, oh wait, I actually have to think about this for a second. I'd say A minus B plus.
Okay.
I mean, it's Stephanie Perkins, so there's a lot of charm. There's a lot of, I mean, there's still a fucking sappy romance in there, and I love that when it's Stephanie Perkins. Nobody else, they can suck it. And there's murder, and there's crazy shit, but there's also, you know, some things that really bothered me, like, you know, it really pissed me off that Katie's parents went to like go out to dinner or whatever it is they did, or maybe Katie's mom had to work. I don't remember what it was, but it was just like, no. You don't leave her. Don't leave her. Don't do this. You got an open window. Like, this isn't okay. And so there were parts where I was just like, oh man, the adults in this fucking book suck except for the grandmother. Yeah. But that's, I guess, YA for you. So I want to go with A minus B plus. How about you?
Yeah, I think I land around the same thing. For me, I think that which again, like, that's a really good grade. I like this book. I enjoyed reading it. I stayed up until 2 a.m. reading it, which was not my plan. But just kind of not being sure what in the end it all added up to.
Yeah.
Which maybe if I read it again, I would have a better idea about that, but that keeps me from giving it just an A or an A plus. So I think A minus or B plus is about right for me too.
And I think, you know, B plus is pretty damn good. And part of my problem was that, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just because it's her first horror book. She needs to sort of work out some of the kinks, either make it more mysterious and don't give it away so soon, or give it away really early and let us sort of, I guess, see the machinations a little more. I think that would be interesting too. Like, you know, not necessarily, I guess, being more on the killer's side and seeing like what they're doing and how they're thinking would be, I mean, because we get a little bit of that once we know who it is.
Right.
But I think either not telling us until the very end or telling us earlier and letting us in on the ride might have given it a higher grade for me. What would have given it an A plus for you?
Like, I think just kind of a motivation that was a little easier for me to hold on to rather than like people die because the killer thinks that they're going to leave the town. Like, I just don't really know what to do with that. So yeah, if it were something,
yeah, I guess, like, why does that matter?
Right. And, you know, I mean, within the book, the answer is like, basically he's psychotic, which is fine. But I also need to, like, I would like to have some kind of idea of what conclusion I'm supposed to draw from that, from the author's perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it, you know, is that nobody leaves the town. Like, people stick around.
Yeah.
But why does that matter?
Right. I mean, there are definitely like kind of themes in there, like sort of about being honest with your friends and your family, and not judging people based on their looks, and kind of not treating tragedy as entertainment.
Yeah, there was a lot of, like, once they knew, like, what was going on, there's a lot of, like, talking about, like, what's on the news, because the grandmother's always watching the news. Yeah. It's always, like, you know, all these other awful things that are happening all around the country.
Yeah. And, yeah. So, but I don't want to be too critical because I really enjoyed the book. So
yeah, I mean, it was a really fun book, and I think, you know, I'm going to read it again. I mean, it's Stephanie Perkins, for fuck's sake. Of course, I'm going to read it again.
Yeah,
but, you know, as my favorite, she may be my favorite YA writer, but she's not my favorite YA horror writer at this time. And that's okay.
Room for improvement is good.
Absolutely. I hope she tries again, and I hope she I don't know. Hope she makes it creepier.
Anything else we should say before we?
I don't know. I think we did a fine enough job. We talked about this book. We like it. We're happy it was written. I love you, Stephanie Perkins. You're my favorite. Call me.
She's in North Carolina.
She is. She's in Asheville.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we could be BFFs. I won't even ask to braid your hair or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not creepy. Anyway.
Okay. Well, all right. So next episode, in the last episode that we said that the next book was going to be Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, but for various reasons we ended up doing this one first. But now the next one definitely will be Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, which I'm really looking forward to talking to you about. That's a real interesting book. It's
a really good book, and I'm excited. I love Libba Bray. I love Libba Bray's writing. I love Libba Bray as a person. Like, I would like just I want to collect best friends is what I'm trying to do here. And so she's one of them.
And she actually tweeted about there's someone inside your house and being excited that it was out.
Yay!
All right. So that's this special edition of Love You Like Crazy, where we talked about There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Carrie and I and this podcast are members of the Ear Trumpet Audio Network.
We sure are.
So you can visit eartrumpetaudio.com for all of your podcast needs, and you can follow it on Twitter at Ear Trumpet Audio or on Facebook, Ear Trumpet Audio. You can also check out the other great podcasts on the network. And there's a brand new, a new podcast on the network called Nancy Drew's Mystery Podcast, which I wanted to single out. It's hosted by Michelle Cooper of the Lifemark podcast, and she's going through the Nancy Drew books chronologically. We talked about one of the Nancy Drew books, and we didn't like it very much.
Well, I can't wait to hear what she has to say about that one.
Yeah. And she's also talking about the movies, and I've listened to it, and I think it's real good. So I recommend you check that one out as well. Ear Trumpet Audio has a Patreon account, which you can pledge money to support the shows on the network, including ours. If you pledge at the $5 a month or higher level, then you get to hear a bunch of bonus episodes that Carrie and I have recorded about the TV series Riverdale.
Yes.
Which is a crazy TV series.
It is something. It is something. That's all I have to say about that. Oh God. Oh, so yeah, that's a thing we do for you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So I feel like I'm talking too much, but I'm really glad that you were up for doing this like marathon read and record session, Carrie. I appreciate it.
I finished it last night at 10 o'clock, and I was like, I wonder if Jake's done. Why don't we just do this now?
Yeah, and I was like...
But you were not.
I was like, no, I'm not quite there. Man, I'm so tired, Carrie. Just so very, very tired.
And I'm going to go to bed soon.
Good idea.
Give me a call when you get back. Hey there.
Hey.
LoveWhyLikeCrazy.com EarTrumpetAudio.com.
Ideas and entertainment.
Loud and clear.
Okay. Da, 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 da. Headphones, microphone. Headphones, microphone. Okay.
Hi.
How is that?